In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
So you want to design dubstep sounds. Lucky for you, I got you covered, especially on the growl bass department. But before that, let's deal with the drums. This is Itala, in which I loaded up some dubstep drum samples. Using the step sequencer in Cakewalk by Bandlab, I laid down this simple, generic dubstep beat pattern. Well, the easy part's over. Now let me walk you through some basics of sound design. If you don't have the basics, it will be very difficult to understand the higher levels of sound designing. So I brought in the plugin called Helm because it can give a good visual idea of what is going on. That is how Sawtooth Wave sounds like. We only want one. Down here we have the amplitude envelope, which can help us understand the concept of envelopes in general. In any envelope there will be at least 4 parameters, namely attack, decay, sustain and release. Attack defines the entrance of the sound. Sustain is the volume it should produce while still holding the key. Decay is the time it takes to reach sustain. And finally, release is the time a sound should be produced even after lifting the finger from the key. Next we have the filter, which is used to filter out frequencies. You see this bump here? That is actually called resonance. Now let's make a pluck sound. To do that, I'm going to modulate the low pass filter cutoff with the filter envelope. Let's also adjust the amplitude envelope. We can make it a little more fuller by increasing the voices in unison. Then add some reverb. And outside of the plugin, we can increase the stereo image. Now let's put these ideologies into making a growl bass. So I laid down the dubstep pattern that was in my head into a new instance of Helm. And then added the free open source plugin Surge into the project. The two important factors that make this plugin suitable for designing growl bass is that it has 2 filters and the fact that it can handle wavetables, which most free plugins or free synthesizers cannot. We have some growly bass tables which I downloaded from the page which I was taken to on clicking this option. I happen to really like bass table 55. Now let me show you what Surge is capable of doing. That is just wavetable manipulation. Now for the filters. Now let's talk about LFO, low frequency oscillator. It does not produce any sound of its own, but it can be used to manipulate various parameters in the synthesizer. Lucky for us, the LFO in Surge has the capability to handle even envelopes. And for the record, Surge has a total of 12 LFOs and we are gonna use only one. Let's sync the parameters of LFO1 with the tempo of the project. I'm drawing the most used LFO shape for creating growl basses. Now let's connect the LFO to various parameters. Now we are going to make this a high pass filter, that is, it will only allow frequencies above the cutoff value to come through. And this one as low pass. As you've guessed it, it will only allow lower frequencies than the cutoff value to come through. And a considerable amount of resonance, because the movement of cutoff with resonance is gonna give it a vocal characteristic. Check out how the envelope affects the modulation. Let's use the wave shaper in the plugin. There are some inbuilt effects in the plugin, but unfortunately we cannot connect the LFO to the parameters of the effects. I'm gonna add a little bit of distortion. This signal is gonna be fed to a limiter assigned in the next box. Then added OTT in the track. Then added temper, which is a distortion plugin, before OTT in the effects chain. Now that everything was set up, decided to make the sound the best version it can be. Oh, and this is the filter configuration which decides the flow of audio signals through the two filters and the wave shaper. On the outside, I added ozone imager after OTT. Also try different octaves. Added a limiter to keep the level in check. Never forget to sidechain. And it's dubstep. We have to keep on experimenting until we are satisfied.
2,000 years later.
Yeah, I'm done with the growl. This is what it sounds like in the end. Since we have a good growl there, we can duplicate the track and treat it as a foundation for designing the next sound. And just like before, I played around the controls in Surge, the shape of LFO, filter configuration, wavetable shapes. Oh, and something that I did different was add this reverb on the track. I wasn't satisfied with the sounds I made for this portion. Like, I couldn't say, yes, this is the sound I need. So I decided to move on creating the next sound, hoping it would give me an overall idea with which I can come back to this sound. Let's modulate the pitch with an envelope. Set LFO in read trigger mode and connected it to fine tuning and increased the frequency of the LFO. Increased the unison. Made it a little more nastier by modulating the oscillator 1 volume in mixer by a high frequency square wave mono LFO. So now we have this. And for the next sound, I duplicated the main growl track. Since I had an idea of it being a growly sound but is kind of sweeping into the repetition of the main growl, this is what I ended up making. Sorry, that was me trying out one of all the possibilities to get the right sound, like this. I was kind of satisfied with the sound, so I repeated it, and we do need some variations for the repetition. So I brought in one more helm and drew this on the piano roll. And designed it to sound like kind of a hard, distorted vocal bass. Remember the awesome plugin that I featured in my last video featuring Deadmau5 type music? Well, it has got an even more powerful successor which has got tons of controls that we can mess around. But I'm gonna use it to show how we can utilize the automation of the DAW to make dubstep sounds. The most in-your-face modulation can be achieved by modulating the parameters related to the bit crusher in the plugin. Then added Helm with Grit Bass preset. Added Tremolo effect on it. And then automated the rate of tremolo to get this. Also an automation of stereo width on the same. Well, I'm kind of satisfied with this. So I copied and repeated the pattern and made some variations to keep it interesting, like changing the note lengths and octaves. Remember the plug sound that we made in the beginning? I used it to make an arpeggio pattern. And decided to use this sample as part of the rhythm.
1, 2, 3, jump!
We only need that last portion saying jump, and I laid it down on the piano roll. Kind of felt that it was a little too long for it to be a rhythmic element, so I transposed it one octave above to make it shorter. Sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks, right? So I brought in the autotuner called the growl and dialed down on the pitch shift. And then added some white noises like this to give it a rave ambience. Then some reverse snare. I figured it was time to deal with sub bass. To design the sub bass that is supposed to go with the growl, I duplicated the growl track so that it would get the modulations of the growl. Then I removed all the effects on that and changed the wave into a simple sine wave. And for the sub bass that should go with the whack 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 thingy, I added Helm again with a sine wave as the sub in the mixer. Then added some impact samples and reverse samples like this. Okay, I was pleased with this, so I started mixing and making some more arrangements. I also ended up doing some more redesign on the sounds that I used, and this is what it looks like in the end. And here is the demo for you guys. Hope you dig it. If you found this video useful, then do like it, and for more videos involving Cakewalk by Bandlab and free VSTs, then do subscribe. Stay healthy, stay safe, I'll see you around.